Perfect timing, Amanda, I said, my voice colder than December wind. But first, let's make a quick stop at the police station. They've been waiting to see the documents I sent them yesterday. The color drained from her face, her confident smile shattering like glass. Beside her, the notary fumbled with his papers, as though he'd just realized he was dealing cards at my funeral. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Because this story begins with the most humiliating 24 hours of my life and ends with the most satisfying. 2 days earlier, I had been sitting in the very same church where I'd married my late husband 35 years ago, watching my only son Michael slip a gold band onto Amanda's finger. She looked radiant in white, her hand resting gently on her pregnant belly, the child I thought would make us a real family at last. Hope flickered inside me that maybe, just maybe, we could build something together. The ceremony was flawless. Roses lined the pews, chandeliers bathed everyone in golden light, and guests whispered about how beautiful the young couple looked. But inside me, happiness tangled with unease. I had scraped together $15,000, every penny saved, from my modest Social Security checks, from skipping bus rides and walking to the grocery store, from buying off-brand cereal. That money went straight into their down payment, a silent promise that my sacrifices would build their future. At the reception, as waiters carried champagne flutes through the glittering ballroom, I stood near the edge, trying to savor the moment. The country club smelled of polished wood and expensive perfume. The same club where I had once worked as a waitress to pay Michael's college tuition. I thought about those endless shifts, about how I'd scrub tables in this very room, while dreaming my son would someday live a better life. And then, over the hum of laughter and clinking glasses, Amanda's voice cut through. "Dorothy has been living with us for months now," she announced to a table of her friends, her smile sugary enough to rot teeth. "She's been so generous, even helping with the house down payment. Such a selfless mother-in-law, isn't she?" The women at the table nodded politely, but I caught their sidelong glances, the ones that said, "Poor old woman, she can't manage on her own anymore." Heat rose in my chest. My hand trembled around the stem of my champagne glass. In that instant, I realized Amanda wasn't praising me. She was branding me, painting me as dependent, as a burden, as someone who couldn't let go of her grown son. I clenched my jaw, staring at the polished silver forks and glowing candles, symbols of a life I had once worked to provide. Amanda had humiliated me in front of everyone. What I didn't know then was that the true ambush, the one with signatures and stolen rights, was waiting the very next morning. The applause that followed Amanda's speech was thin, hesitant, like a breeze rattling dry leaves. I forced a smile, but inside I was burning. Every eye in the room had turned toward me, not with admiration, not with respect, but with pity. The word dependent wasn't spoken, but it hung there, heavy and suffocating. Michael raised his glass next, his smile wide and proud, his voice booming across the ballroom. "I want to thank everyone who made this day possible," he said. "My beautiful wife, our families, and of course my mother, who's always been there when we needed her." A polite murmur of applause filled the room. Normal, harmless. But then Amanda stood, elegant in her wedding gown, her hand resting gently on Michael's arm. The room hushed again, anticipation crackling in the air. "I'd like to say something about Dorothy," she began, her smile dazzling, her voice honeyed. "She's been living with us for months now, and I've learned so much about loyalty from her. Some mothers step back when their sons get married, but Dorothy has shown me that a mother's job is never really done." The words sliced through me. My heart had swelled for a moment, when she began foolishly hoping she meant to welcome me into her life. But with every sentence, her praise twisted sharper. like knives wrapped in silk. She's even helping us financially, Amanda continued, her eyes gleaming. Because that's what mothers do. They sacrifice everything for their children's happiness. Silence. Deafening silence. The chandeliers above us seemed to hum louder than the people. The guests weren't clapping now. They weren't sure if this was gratitude or ridicule. But I knew. Oh, I knew. Amanda wasn't honoring me. She was branding me as pathetic. A woman who couldn't let go. A mother still clinging to her son's household, even paying their bills. She had reduced decades of sacrifice to a caricature. The meddling, dependent old woman. I glanced down at my champagne glass, the bubbles rising and popping like little bursts of mockery. My throat tightened. I had scrubbed floors, worked double shifts, skipped meals, all so Michael could stand here in his expensive suit, in this glittering room. And now, I was the punchline to Amanda's performance. Michael didn't notice. He beamed at his bride, proud of her poise, blind to the cruelty wrapped in her words. Guests whispered. One woman leaned toward another, her pearl necklace catching the light as she murmured something I couldn't hear. But I knew the shape of pity when I saw it. I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling my heart thud beneath my dress. I thought of the framed photos back in my old apartment, the ones Amanda had insisted I pack away when I moved in with them. Pictures of me and Michael through the years, graduations, birthdays, Christmas mornings. Each photo a reminder of sacrifices no one here would ever know. Amanda smiled wider, satisfied. She had taken everything I'd done for my son and twisted it into weakness. That night, as the band played and couples danced under the golden lights, I sat alone, staring at my untouched plate of cake, and I realized something with chilling clarity. Humiliation was only the beginning, because tomorrow morning, Amanda's real plan would reveal itself, and it wouldn't just be my pride at stake. It would be my home, my freedom, and my very independence. The morning sun spilled weakly through the blinds, casting pale stripes across the kitchen table where I sat with my coffee. The bitterness clung to my tongue, but it wasn't the coffee that tasted sour. It was the memory of last night. The smirks, the whispers, the echo of Amanda's voice branding me a dependent in front of everyone I knew. I thought I had endured the worst of her cruelty. I was wrong. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Amanda on my porch, her wedding makeup scrubbed away but her smile just as sharp. Beside her stood a man in a gray suit, a briefcase clutched in his hand. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Dorothy, Amanda sang, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. This is Mr. Patterson from Sterling Legal Services. We need to go over some paperwork. My stomach sank. Paperwork. The word carried the weight of betrayal. I poured myself another cup of coffee, steadying my hands as I sat back down at the table. What kind of paperwork? Amanda exchanged a glance with the notary, then folded her hands in front of her like she was delivering good news. Michael and I have been talking. We think it's time to make some changes. You've been so generous with the house down payment, and we want to make sure you're properly taken care of as you get older. The coffee burned bitter against my throat. What does that mean exactly? Mr. Patterson cleared his throat and opened his briefcase. Mrs. Henderson, your son and daughter-in-law have arranged for you to move into Sunset Manor. It's a lovely assisted living facility, full-time staff, activities, medical supervision. They've already put down a deposit. My mug hit the table harder than I intended, the sound sharp in the quiet kitchen. Amanda's voice softened, falsely gentle. Michael's just so worried about you. You've seemed forgetful lately. Forgetful. The word stung worse than any slap. I was 68, not 98. My mind was sharper than most people half my age. But Amanda had been planting this seed for weeks. Subtle digs about my memory, quiet corrections, when I recalled things differently. She was weaving a story, and this was her climax. I may forget, I said carefully, but I do remember that this house deed has my name on it alongside Michael's. Amanda's smile never wavered, but her eyes hardened. Actually, Dorothy, that's part of what we need to discuss. Michael and I are refinancing. It would be much simpler if the property were solely in our names. Cleaner paperwork. Easier for everyone. And my $15,000 down payment? I asked, my voice ice. Amanda tilted her head. All faux sympathy. Consider it a wedding gift. After all, you want your son to be happy, don't you? The notary shifted uncomfortably, checking his watch. He had no idea he was witnessing daylight robbery disguised in legal ink. And where's Michael? I demanded. Amanda didn't miss a beat. At the gym. He finds all this financial talk stressful, so he thought it would be better if I handled it. Of course he had. Michael had always avoided confrontation. At 12, he'd written me a letter instead of asking for a bicycle. At 17, he'd sent his girlfriend to tell me he'd wrecked his car. And now, at 42, he was still hiding behind others to do his dirty work. Mrs. Henderson. Mr. Patterson said gently, sliding the documents toward me. These papers state that you would sign over your share of the property in exchange for your first year of assisted living expenses fully covered. 1 year. They were buying me out of my own home for a single year of care I didn't need. And after that year? I asked quietly. Amanda's voice was like polished steel. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Her audacity was breathtaking. But she had made one mistake. She believed I was cornered. She didn't realize that I'd been a mother for 42 years, and I'd learned how to survive storms long before she ever entered our lives. I'll need time to think about this, I said, standing. Amanda's mask slipped, just for a second. Dorothy, Mr. Patterson has other appointments today. It would be more convenient if we just handled this now. Convenient for her. I'm not signing anything today, I replied. The notary looked relieved. Of course, Mrs. Henderson. Take all the time you need. These are big decisions. But Amanda's eyes told a different story. She wasn't planning to give me time. She was planning to wear me down. One lie, one insult, one forgetful slip at a time. From that morning onward, Amanda began weaving her web tighter, each thread invisible to anyone who wasn't caught in it. It started with small, offhand comments. Dorothy, you left the stove on again, she would say sweetly, as though reminding a child, except I hadn't used the stove that morning. I'd made toast in the toaster. Still, she repeated it often enough that Michael started believing it. At dinner, she'd glance at me with mock concern. Oh, Dorothy. You forgot our plans tonight, didn't you? We were supposed to meet Sarah for coffee. But I hadn't forgotten. Amanda herself had canceled earlier that day. Still, she planted the idea in Michael's head. Mom is forgetful. Mom is slipping. It was death by 1,000 insinuations. A misplaced grocery list became evidence of confusion. A request to repeat herself because she was whispering became proof that I couldn't follow conversations. She whispered these stories to neighbors, to friends, to Michael himself, always with that same syrupy tone of concern. At first, I dismissed it, but then I noticed the way Michael began looking at me. The pause before he handed me car keys, the hesitation when I offered to watch the baby, the subtle shift in his eyes, from son to caretaker. And I realized Amanda's lies were working. She wasn't just trying to humiliate me, she was building a case. One night, while clearing dishes, Amanda struck again. You know, Dorothy, sometimes aging sneaks up on us. Little slips here and there. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But Michael and I worry. I set down my fork carefully. refusing to let my hands tremble. Worry about what? Exactly. That you can't keep living independently forever, she said. Her voice soft, but her eyes hard. Sunset Manor would give you stability, safety, and peace of mind for all of us. Ah, Michael nodded beside her, silent, as though Amanda were the only voice in the room. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to remind him of who I was, the woman who had raised him, who had worked nights at the diner so he could go to college, who had survived the death of a husband and built a life from nothing. But I knew yelling would only play into Amanda's hands. The more I resisted, the more she would paint me as irrational, unstable, unfit. So instead, I smiled. A tight, practiced smile. You may be right, Amanda, I said softly. Maybe I am forgetful sometimes. Maybe I do need help. Her face lit up, triumphant. She thought I was breaking. She thought her gaslighting was working. But later that night, in the silence of my room, I opened the fireproof box she'd insisted we keep locked away in their closet. Inside were the original deed to the house, the canceled check for $15,000, clearly labeled down payment loan, and most importantly, the power of attorney documents Michael had begged me to sign 6 months ago. Amanda thought she'd buried my independence under whispers and lies. But she'd underestimated me. Because while she was busy spinning her story of decline, I had made sure to add one small clause. One Amanda knew nothing about. A clause that meant, unless 2 independent physicians declared me mentally incompetent, those papers she treasured so dearly weren't worth the ink they were printed on. When Amanda left for her manicure appointment, I finally did something I hadn't dared in weeks. I unlocked the fireproof box she thought she controlled. She had insisted it stay in their bedroom closet, for safety. But I still had the spare key, and safety, as it turned out, was the last thing she wanted for me. Inside lay the truth. First, the deed. My name, printed right next to Michael's. Not a suggestion, not a footnote. Ownership, in black and white. Amanda could whisper all she wanted about refinancing, but she couldn't erase ink. Next, the canceled check. $15,000. Every penny, scraped from my Social Security checks and careful savings, written directly into their down payment. Across the memo line, Michael's handwriting, down payment loan. A mother's sacrifice reduced by Amanda to a gift for number. It was never charity. It was an agreement. And then the ace. The power of attorney Amanda had thought was her golden ticket. She believed it gave her control of my future, the final stroke to paint me helpless. But she hadn't read the fine print as carefully as I had. I had gone to my lawyer months earlier, and we had added a single line. The authority only activated if 2 independent doctors declared me mentally incompetent. Until then, Amanda's so-called leverage was nothing but wasted ink. I spread the documents across the table like a poker hand, every page a shield, every line a weapon. Amanda had been building her case with whispers and insinuations, but I had the paper trail. Hard proof. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Sorry I missed the meeting. How did it go? How did it go? His wife had tried to bury me alive in paperwork while he lifted weights at the gym. I stared at the screen, anger and sadness tangling inside me. He wasn't a child anymore. He was a man choosing silence while his wife sharpened her knives. I closed the folder, tucked it into my purse, and locked it. Amanda thought she had cornered me. She had no idea I had just stacked the deck. The next time she came with her notary, I wouldn't just defend myself, I would end her game. The knock came just after noon. I opened the door to Amanda's practiced smile and Mr. Patterson's uneasy eyes. She was dressed for battle cream blazer, polished hair, every detail screaming control. Dorothy, she said warmly. We thought today would be perfect to finalize things. I gestured to the table. Coffee, muffins, and a neat folder waited, not hers. Mine. Mr. Patterson slid a pen across the wood. If you'll just review these forms, Mrs. Henderson. Amanda leaned in, her voice sweet. Sunset Manor is ready for you. You'll have friends, activities, everything you need. I opened my folder instead. Before we begin, let's look at the deed. I placed it flat on the table. My name beside Michael's. Bold and permanent. Amanda blinked but recovered. Refinancing will make it simpler. Cleaner paperwork. I slid out the canceled check. $15,000. Clearly marked down payment loan. You've been parading it as a gift. Her knuckles whitened on her coffee cup. And then, my final card. The power of attorney. This only activates if 2 independent doctors declare me incompetent. Which they haven't. Which they won't. The room fell silent. Mr. Patterson adjusted his glasses, scanning the clause. She's correct. This condition is valid. Amanda's smile cracked. Dorothy, you're being paranoid. We're trying to protect you. I leaned forward. Protect me from what? From my own home? From my own money? She stiffened, anger flashing through her polished mask. Michael won't stand for this. He trusts me. Michael wasn't here, I said coldly. He never is when you do the dirty work. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat, already gathering his briefcase. I can't proceed until this is resolved. Amanda turned on him. You're just here to witness a signature, but it was too late. The tide had shifted. I sat back, calm, while Amanda's mask slipped further, panic creeping into her eyes. She thought she'd cornered me with paperwork. Instead, she'd walked straight into mine. Michael came home late, gym bag slung over his shoulder, the smell of sweat and iron following him into the kitchen. He stopped short when he saw the documents spread across the table, my purse resting beside them like a guard dog. Mom, he began cautious. Amanda told me things got tense with the notary. Tense? I held up the deed. Your wife tried to trick me into signing away my home. That isn't tense, Michael. That's betrayal. He rubbed his forehead. Amanda's just thinking about your safety. Assisted living. Stop. I cut him off. Do you believe I need assisted living? Do you honestly think I'm incapable of managing my life? He faltered. She says you've been forgetful, that you left the stove on. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Toast in the toaster, Michael. No stove. And yet you believe her version of events without question. He shifted his weight, avoiding my eyes. The little boy who used to slip me notes instead of asking for what he wanted stood in front of me again. But now he was a grown man letting his wife speak for him. Mom, please, he whispered. She means well. I slammed the canceled check onto the table. Means well. This says otherwise. $15,000. A loan. Not a gift. Not her money. Mine. His face reddened. I never wanted this. No, I said coldly. You just let it happen. You hid at the gym while your wife tried to erase me from my own life. That's worse, Michael. You gave her permission by doing nothing. He sat heavily at the table, burying his face in his hands. I don't know what to do. I gathered the documents, slid them into my purse, and stood. You don't have to do anything. I've already made my choice. I won't stay in this house another night. His head shot up. Mom, don't leave. Oh, but I was already walking toward the stairs, my footsteps echoing like nails, sealing a coffin. For the first time, he realized he was about to lose more than a house. He was about to lose me. 3 weeks later, I was settling into my new apartment, a modest 1-bedroom across town with a view of the park. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. The walls were bare, the furniture sparse, but every detail whispered freedom. No Amanda lurking in doorways, no Michael avoiding my eyes, just me, my space, and silence that finally felt like peace. I was unpacking the last box when the intercom buzzed. "Dorothy, dear," came Mrs. Chen's voice from the lobby. "You have a visitor." I wasn't expecting anyone. When I peered through the peephole, I froze. Standing, there was a woman about my age, dressed in a tailored coat, a plate of something covered in foil cradled in her arms. Her face carried the same sharp bone structure as Amanda's, but her eyes were softer, more weary. I opened the door cautiously. "Mrs. Henderson?" she asked, her voice polite, but strained. "I'm Patricia Winters, Amanda's mother." For a moment, I simply stared. Of all the people I expected to find on my doorstep, Amanda's mother was not one of them. "Please, come in," I said finally. She set the plate on the counter and sat primly on the edge of my sofa. "It's lemon cake," she explained. My way of apologizing. "Apologizing?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She sighed, her shoulders sagging. "For not raising my daughter better than this." The word startled me. I sat down across from her, waiting. Patricia folded her hands, staring at the floor. "When you called me 3 weeks ago to warn me what Amanda was doing, my first instinct was to defend her. No mother wants to believe her child is capable of such cruelty. But Dorothy," she shook her head, "I've seen the pattern before." A chill swept through me. "Pattern?" "Yes," she said softly. "When Amanda was in college, there was an incident. She borrowed her roommate's credit cards, claimed it was a misunderstanding, that she meant to pay them back. We hired a lawyer, smoothed it over." Patricia's eyes flicked up to meet mine, heavy with guilt. Then came her first marriage. It ended when her husband discovered she'd been taking money from his elderly father's checking account. Again, Amanda called it a misunderstanding. Again, we covered it up. I felt my stomach twist. "Michael doesn't know." Patricia shook her head. "Amanda made me promise never to tell. She swore she'd changed, that she wanted a fresh start. I wanted to believe her. But then you called, and I knew the truth. My daughter hasn't changed at all. She's simply found a new target." She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope, sliding it across the coffee table toward me. $15,000, she said quietly. "In cash. It's what Amanda took from you. Please accept it." I stared at the envelope, my hands frozen in my lap. "I can't take your money, Patricia." "You can," she insisted. "And you will. My daughter stole from you, as her mother. It's my responsibility to make it right." I blinked back tears, my throat tight. For the first time in weeks, I felt the weight of betrayal lighten, if only slightly. Amanda had underestimated me, but perhaps she had also underestimated her own mother. Patricia leaned forward, her voice low and certain. "Dorothy, you must protect yourself. Amanda married Michael because she believed he came from money. She thought you were wealthy. When she realizes you aren't her golden goose, she'll move on. To another man. Another victim. Don't let her destroy you first." Her words landed like iron, and in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. The next morning, I sat at my small kitchen table, Patricia's envelope still resting where she'd left it. I hadn't even opened it. The money wasn't what mattered, not anymore. What mattered was the truth. And the truth was that Amanda had built her marriage, her reputation, her entire life on lies. So I picked up the phone and dialed Detective Rodriguez from the Elder Abuse Division. His voice was calm, but firm. "Mrs. Henderson, Are you ready to proceed? Yes, I said, my voice steady. It's time. Within days, I had turned over everything. The deed, the canceled check, the loan agreement, and the power of attorney with its hidden clause. But what made the detective's eyes sharpen wasn't the paperwork. It was the emails. I'd printed them out, the ones Amanda had foolishly left on Michael's computer. We need to move faster on the Dorothy situation, she had written. She's asking too many questions about the money, and I'm worried she's going to interfere with the refinancing. Those words, black and white, stripped away her polished mask. They revealed her true nature, not a concerned daughter-in-law, but a predator, laying a trap. Detective Rodriguez nodded as he scanned the papers. This is strong evidence of financial exploitation and coercion. Elder abuse. Plain and simple. Amanda must have sensed the ground shifting beneath her, because 2 weeks later she stormed into my apartment, her smile brittle. Dorothy, what did you tell them? Michael says the police contacted him. I didn't flinch. I told them the truth. Her composure cracked. You're destroying this family. Do you want Michael to lose his job? His marriage? The baby your grandchild will grow up without stability because of you. No, I said softly. Michael will lose those things. Because of you. Because you couldn't stop lying. Because you chose greed over family. Her eyes blazed. For the first time, Amanda dropped the act. You selfish old woman. Do you think anyone will believe you over me? Michael believes me. Everyone does. I reached for the folder on the table, opening it just enough for her to glimpse the bold black letters of the email printouts. Not anymore, I said. Her face drained of color. She backed away, as if the papers themselves were poison. 3 days later, the knock came at Amanda and Michael's front door. Not mine. Uniformed officers. Handcuffs. Glinting in the afternoon sun. Mrs. Amanda Henderson, the officer said. You are under arrest for elder financial abuse, fraud, and attempted coercion. You have the right to remain silent. I wasn't there, but Detective Rodriguez called me afterward. His voice edged with satisfaction. She blamed you, of course. Said it was all your fault. But the evidence speaks louder than her words. When Michael called that evening, his voice was hollow. Mom, they arrested Amanda. Is it true? Did you press charges? Yes, I said quietly. Because if I didn't, she would have done it to someone else. Maybe even to you. Silence stretched between us, heavy as stone. Finally, he whispered, I don't know how to fix this. That's because you can't fix her, Michael, I said. You can only decide who you want to be when the dust settles.